The underlying logic of body and mind operation.
Hello everyone. Welcome to this episode of our in-depth analysis. Today, we are going to explore a truly fascinating sharing session from the Australian Buddha Association. To be honest, whenever people mention Eastern philosophy or Buddhism, the immediate reaction is often, "Oh, that sounds way too profound and intangible." Right, but today, we are going to strip away those seemingly hyper-abstract concepts and turn them into a practical, down-to-earth, everyday life guide that you can actually use. We are going to look right through the underlying logic of how our body and mind operate. Are you ready? Let's dive straight into the main topic. Right at the beginning of the sharing session, the master posed a very resounding, almost mind-opening question: if the Buddha's words are not to be believed, whose words can be believed? The weight of this statement is immense. Think about it carefully. Ponder on it. The master is definitely not asking you to engage in blind worship. Instead, he is sounding a serious alarm for us if you choose to ignore the ultimate wisdom handed down by those who have already seen, completely unraveled and dissected the truths of the universe and life. What on earth is left in this world that you can believe in? It is akin to asking us to first set aside our little arrogance and truly face the reality of the truth. So, I want to ask you directly, right in front of your screen, do you truly know where the root of your suffering lies? How much suffering can you actually perceive within yourself? In the dialogue, the master questioned the disciple step by step. Much like Socrates, many of us love to talk big. We chat about the Pure Land, Buddha nature, and even practice meditation every single day. But the master points out directly, if you cannot even get past the most basic hurdle of knowing suffering, if you cannot even figure out why you are feeling uncomfortable, then talking about liberation is nothing more than building castles in the air. Therefore, we need to pull our gaze away from the boundless, infinite universe and snap it right back to our most real, concrete physical sensations. Part E, the root of suffering, redefining greed. To solve any problem, we must first understand the psychological source of the heavy burdens pressing down on us. When it comes to greed, please don't misunderstand. As soon as you hear greed, you probably immediately picture a miserly hoarder crazily chasing after wealth. Right? Not at all. The master points out very sharply, so-called greed is not about pursuing something you have never seen before. Rather, it is about your endless chasing after satisfaction and the replication of the psychological imprints from your childhood. Think about it: your favorite dish to eat, the most comfortable clothes you wear, or even the words that sound sweetest to your ears very often. It's simply because you grew up getting used to them. As you grow up, you search the world high and low, desperately trying to recapture that familiar taste and sense of security. Friends, this is greed. Let us trace this logic, piece by piece, like a puzzle. Step E, environmental conditioning. You grew up immersed in a specific linguistic environment or dietary habit. Step R, your brain starts repeatedly labeling these things, confirming over and over, "Oh, this is good, that is bad." Step 7, this hardens into a psychological craving firmly fixed in your mind. What does this prove? It proves that while you might think the various choices you make every day are driven by your free will, to a large extent, you are simply being led by the nose by concepts established in your childhood. Whatever concepts you establish growing up, that is ultimately the kind of person you become. Part R, from abstract philosophy to concrete reality. Now let's follow this train of thought further, moving from invisible, intangible theories to things we can verify right here and now. One of the most thought-provoking points is that the master offers an immensely pragmatic suggestion: don't obsess over things that are fundamentally unverifiable. At the time, the disciple asked, what on earth should we do about those deeply ingrained, invisible obsessions accumulated from past lives? The master's reply was simply brilliant: your current state already encompasses your past. You don't need to rack your brains trying to figure out past lives that you have no way of discerning. You only need to focus on the here and now, on your sixth consciousness. In plain English, keep your eye on your present habits, the ones your mind can currently recognize and immediately verify. Buddhism values realization, meaning you must be able to personally verify these truths yourself. That is true knowledge. Part 3, the physical toll of dietary greed, the consequences of craving flavors. Now let's map the psychological greed directly onto modern biological reactions, specifically our addictions to sugar and salt. Look at these comparisons, they are truly shocking. The master gives a very grounded example in the sharing. If we indulge our favorite tastes every day, craving refined carbohydrates like white rice, white flour, and table sugar like crazy, what is the physical outcome? Diabetes, if left uncontrolled. It ultimately leads to organ failure. And what if you crave salt? If the sodium in your body drastically exceeds safe levels, this excess salt becomes an immensely heavy burden on your system. It is just like carrying a massive bad debt that causes direct. Isn't this simply clinging stubbornly to childhood dietary preferences and consequently bringing a severe chronic illness upon oneself? Let's look at modern medical conclusions regarding excess sodium. They are crystal clear: high blood pressure, neurological dysfunction, electrolyte imbalance, chronic fatigue, dizziness, nausea, and even muscle cramps and edema. Have you ever wondered whether the suffering that ancient sages talked about day in and day out is precisely the physical symptoms of cardiovascular and neurological disorders that we queue up for hours in hospitals to treat today? Your little bit of greed unnoticeably translates EBE into the very real physical suffering of your flesh. This highlights an astonishing, highly dramatic truth about how our bodies work. The master points out that tissues like the cardiovascular system possess a certain capacity for self-repair and regeneration. Therefore, while you are damaging it with heavy flavored foods on one side, it is desperately trying to repair and regrow on the other. This prevents your body from collapsing overnight. However, pay close attention. Organs like the kidneys and liver have limited or irreversible regeneration capacities. As long as you overconsume them just for the sake of your palate, they will never, ever recover to their original state. Think about it: 3 meals a day, 365 days a year, soaking yourself day in and day out in high saline water. This isn't just eating, it is the permanent destruction of the irreplaceable organs inside your body. Part C: Fasting, Precepts, and Liberation. The ultimate solution we are going to talk about next is not some trendy modern wellness gimmick. It is an ancient, profound discipline. In the sharing, the disciple tells a true story about his grandmother. How did the elderly woman live? She ate only 1 meal a day, known in monastic traditions as Nizang Yishi, eating only during the sun's peak. The next day, she would drink only water and fast completely. On the third day, she would eat 1 meal again. Upon hearing this, the master praised it highly, saying this adherence to precepts is simply wonderful. Did you notice, fasting here is much more than just eating a little less. It is the application of precepts vinaya to real life. When you grit your teeth and cut off the body's excessive cravings for food, guess what? You simultaneously cut off meaningless idle speech. Just as the disciple said, the grandmother not only ate very little, but she also rarely spoke carelessly. When you restrict the disordered intake at the physical level, your inner mind naturally follows and becomes tranquil. Diseases enter through the mouth, and troubles issue from the tongue. These 8 words summarize the core wisdom of the Australian Buddha Association's sharing to absolute perfection. Physical illnesses stem, directly or indirectly, from our unbridled, greedy consumption of food, flavors, and portions. Meanwhile, the chaotic disasters in our lives often stem, directly or indirectly, from our uncontrolled, unchecked output of speech. Not eating regularly, not speaking carelessly, simply by holding fast to the seemingly basic precept, you directly cut off the primary source of physical and mental suffering. This is not just profound Buddhism, it is the most hardcore survival wisdom we can have in this world. Conclusion: bringing all of this back into our own lives now that you have seen clearly how greed morphs into stubborn habits through environmental conditioning, and how a tiny psychological craving ultimately evolves into massive, irreversible physical destruction. What will you choose? Tomorrow morning, when you wake up and sit at the dining table once again, when you face the people around you, what will you choose to ingest into your food and your thoughts? And what will you choose to output? This is truly a question worth deep reflection. Go into your daily life and personally verify these truths for yourself. I hope today's analysis brings you unprecedented inspiration. See you next time.